Bonjour et bienvenue à l'entretien de la ville. That was my horrible attempt at French, but we're here at the La Fête de Marquette here on the east side of Madison for Talk of the Town, and I'm joined now by Phil Anderson, who is running for U.S. Senate. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you with us. So I'm really excited to talk about this because polls came out on Wednesday. You and Gary Johnson were mentioned and did pretty well.
Yeah, we both did, right around 8% for each of us. And it's actually sort of ironic, or maybe coincidental, that it's the Marquette Law School poll that came out, and here we are at the Fête de Marquette, so maybe that's a little coincidental.
Yeah.
But it's a big deal because we both are doing very well in the polls in very tight races, and so that gives us a bit of a head start on name recognition, which is always a challenge for non-Democrat, non-Republican candidates.
Yeah, the third-party candidates. And how? So that's an important thing to be able to be mentioned in the polls.
It is, because if you're not mentioned, that tends to suppress people's recognition of your name. And when you are mentioned, that people understand, rightly so, that you're a viable option. I mean, we're going to be on the ballot. That's already been decided and figured out. So it's only fair that libertarians and anyone else who's on the ballot gets mentioned in the polls.
Yeah.
It's important to acknowledge that, because polls are for information, but also for outreach.
Yeah, absolutely. So libertarians have, up until recently, been excluded from the polls, as I understand.
Correct.
Why has that been the case?
Well, basically, it's a strategy, and you'll also notice that libertarians have been excluded from debates for the most part over the last, forever maybe. The Democrats and Republicans have a vested interest in excluding third-party candidates, especially libertarians, because we ask them questions that they wouldn't ask each other about growing government, about going to war, about invasions of privacy. These are questions that Russ Feingold and Ron Johnson don't want asked of them, and they won't ask each other because they have the same opinion. The same goes in the presidential race as well. They don't want Gary Johnson in the debates, but as we get better polling numbers, they'll have to answer those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And so overall, what does this mean for you and the presidential candidates? I mean, you're showing up on the polls now, and that's good for you. What does that mean for you and the presidential candidates?
It's an acknowledgement of a reality that people, number one, people are really upset with the status quo in politics.
Yeah.
And that's sort of exemplified in the Trump versus Clinton race. But there's also in polling and in my interactions and other people's interactions in Wisconsin, a lot of dissatisfaction with the fact that they've got two major party candidates for Senate who are both in effect incumbents. And people that have been in Washington and haven't solved the problems that they said they were going to, haven't done all that. So the polls acknowledge that people are ready for a third choice, for a different choice. And that's important, that people's opinions get validated publicly.
Yes, absolutely. And does that mean that you'll get an opportunity to be in the debates now?
Well, I expect to. Now, this is sort of maybe a longer answer, so if you'll forgive me.
That's fine.
For the same reason we talked about polling, it goes with debates. Libertarians, Green Party candidates, socialists, everybody's been pretty much excluded from debates up until this election cycle. Gary Johnson's plan, as he stated all along, is to get mentioned in the debates, and the federal requirement is that they get to 15% in the 5 major polls, or an average of the 5 major polls. So that's obviously a threshold that he's close to, because he's already polling at 8 or 9% in Wisconsin. But in other states, he's polling 15, 16, 18%. And especially among millennials and independents, he's actually beating the major party candidates in many areas over Trump, over Clinton. So it's an important acknowledgement that he should be part of the debates. For us, here, our getting into the polls is really important, but also an acknowledgement that when you look at Feingold and Ron Johnson's numbers, they're very soft. So there's a certain amount of people that haven't decided haven't decided at all, but also among their supporters, there are people that still want more information, or aren't sure if they're going to vote, or reserve the right to change their vote, and that's all because of the political atmosphere that we're in as well. So we expect to be in the debates, but the problem is that the debates, both federally and in Wisconsin, are sort of set up, or I might say rigged, towards the major party candidates. They not only require a certain polling level, but they require things like having a physical office somewhere where you can get mail, which we have. Of course, the Johnson Weld campaign does. Right. They also require that you poll at a certain amount, but also they require that you have a certain amount of cash on hand. In 2012, the requirement was that you have at least $250,000 of cash on hand, not raised, not spent, but just in the bank, and that seems to be a big waste of money. But that's the game that's set up for people to get in the debates. But we're going to push that envelope. We're polling well, and we're going to demand to be in that. And I think the public in Wisconsin will demand that as well.
Great. Phil Anderson for U.S. Senate, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Get involved, get out and vote, and we'll be right back with more Talk of the Town here at Lafayette de Marquette. Stay with us. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. We are here again at Lafayette de Marquette, and I'm standing next to Jehiel Harris from Heel Brush Tattoo. Jehiel, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about airbrush tattoos.
Sure.
So for those of us who don't know what that is, give us a little bit of a background, a little bit of an explanation of what that is. How does that compare with real tattoos?
Well, it's basically temporary. I use water-based, non-toxic paint, and I use a stencil, and they tell me where and what color, and I apply it. Lasts a couple days.
Sure. So this is kind of like it's maybe a step up from those stickers that you get.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
but like
not permanent.
the whole sit-down experience is actually kind of like getting a real tattoo. So the kids are like really, really into it, and obviously they don't get really tattooed, but the paint and the overall effect, they are ecstatic.
I imagine you get a number of kids who are like teenage, who aren't old enough to get real tattoos.
Oh yeah.
But they love to come in and say, "Hey, I'm getting a tattoo today." Right?
I get calls for people that just want to see how one would look somewhere because they're thinking about getting a real
That makes
tattoo.
sense.
I've actually have a couple clients that have actually paid me to see what would look like on their hip or something.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You can try it out to see if you like it and then go and get it done.
So a lot of people have commitment issues, and tattoos kind of a big thing.
That is a big commitment. It's a lifelong commitment. So how long have you been doing it now?
I have been doing this for about 3 years. I've been doing all the festivals in Madison. I worked in the Dells. That's where I learned my craft. I worked under a great person, Dan Edwards.
Okay.
Who's a great mentor, and I didn't use my skill for a long time, and then I decided to work for myself.
All right, very good, very good. And so do you have a physical location?
No, I just have a Facebook page.
Sure, and you kind of work the festivals a little bit?
I work the festivals. I'm all word of mouth. I don't even have a website, and I'm so busy, so
nice.
I must be doing something right.
You must be doing something right. So do you have a background in art then that kind of got you into that?
I was in a graffiti crew. I was a graffiti writer.
Okay.
Heavily influences on big bright burners and nice graffiti pieces, and I used to do characters, but that definitely influenced me a lot. And I'm not really good at freehand airbrushing, but as far as stencils go, I can kill it.
Sure. So you call yourself a graffiti writer. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about that. What is that? What does that look like, and how did you get into that?
Just the kids I hung out with, and I was born in '75, so it was all about the '80s and breakdancing and graffiti and real hip hop. So my crew that I hung out with in high school, they were all about the same thing too. And there's a huge difference between a graffiti writer and a tagger. Taggers just desecrate stuff and just right there.
Scribble something on there. Yeah.
A piece is a big, beautiful piece of artwork with lots of colors, and there's a lot of heart and artwork going to it.
It's truly urban artwork.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did you grow up here in Madison?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're out on the streets at night graffitiing Madison. Okay. We won't talk about that. We won't talk about your past. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So now you're kind of working for yourself and you're putting your talents to good use and everything. What's your favorite part about the job?
I call the shots, and I'm the only employer. And I don't have no employees. It's just living, man. Like that's what everyone wants, is to have their own business and work for themselves. And I was blessed enough to be fortunate enough to have that opportunity.
What's been the most interesting piece that you've done for somebody?
Well, I make a lot of custom stencils, and I just recently made a Wisconsin stencil, and it's been really popular.
Sure. Okay. So you do some stencils. You actually create those stencils.
Mm-hmm. And I make my own stencils because I don't really want to buy them off the internet. And I was just like something that I would want to make. Like I have like Krusty the Clown or Ralph Wiggum pick him in his nose, or you name it, I'll make it. I have the gorillas. I have a Link stencil. Whatever I would want, I make.
Perfect. And then that way people know that there's only one place that they can get.
It's literally locally handmade stencils.
It's very local, hyper local.
There.
Jehiel Harris from Heel Toe?
Heel Brush Tattoo.
Heel Brush Tattoo. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Don't go away. There is more Talk of the Town right here at Lafayette de Marquette coming up after this. Stick around. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. We are on location at the Fête de Marquette, Lafayette de Marquette, I should say, over on the east side of Madison. I'm standing here with Tammy Rushke from the Bohemian Bauble. Welcome, Tammy.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for being on today. So you do some pretty fascinating jewelry, it looks like, custom jewelry. How long have you been making jewelry?
It's been 23 years. So I've been doing it a long time, and I still totally have the fire in my belly. Still
Sure.
love doing it.
I have to imagine that that's something that you're always learning something new, and you learn something new and you say, oh, I want to try that.
Yeah.
I want to put something together using this new technique. And
Lots
things
of
like that.
experimenting, got to keep it fresh, so you got to come up
Yeah.
with new ideas all the time.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty rewarding.
It is. It's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
So, now how do you come up with some of your designs?
I do a lot of it in my sleep.
No kidding.
I wake up well, not in my sleep, but I wake
Sure.
up at like 2 a.m. and I'm designing in my head.
Really?
And then
Okay.
I have a notepad next to my bed and I'll scribble out some things. So
Sure.
I think it's going on all the time.
Do you remember when you wake up, like in the morning, then, and you see some of the things you've written
I
down?
do.
Do you remember writing them down?
I
or is it
do.
like, I don't remember.
No, I usually do, and I'm glad I do because if I didn't write it down, it would be lost.
It would be gone.
It'd be
forever.
gone. Yeah.
That's smart to have that by your bed then.
Yeah.
So, what of all the designs that you've done, what's your favorite design?
I'm well known in town for a design that I do with these sunbursts.
Okay.
I hand paint them in vibrant colors. I do necklaces, bracelets, earrings with the sunburst design, and I sell them in a lot of stores around town.
Sure, okay.
And they sell really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have a brick and mortar store at this point, but you are.
I had one for 6 years.
Okay.
I closed in 2011, and now I'm just mobile.
Sure.
I'm around all
You're
the
a
time.
vendor.
I am. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what do you think makes you successful? Because obviously you've been doing this for 23 years now. What makes you successful?
Well, you actually brought it up. I think one of the reasons that makes me successful is I'm constantly changing up my designs and
Sure.
coming up with new ideas, new color schemes, just always changing, evolving all the time.
Yeah. Do you have things that you did 23 years ago that you're still doing now?
No.
Nothing.
And,
It's all
and,
new.
And when I look at it, my family loves to pull out my stuff from 23 years ago, and I'm just like, oh!
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see how you've improved as
Oh,
well.
for sure.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what is your biggest challenge? I mean, obviously, being a business owner, coming up with new, fresh things, always improving. There's a lot of challenges there. What do you feel like is your biggest challenge?
Well, the jewelry world is very competitive. There's lots of jewelry at all of the shows, so you really got to make yourself stand out. And I feel like the way I do that is by always having something new. I have a lot of repeat customers, and every time they come into my booth, they're going to see something that they haven't seen before. And I think that puts me a top notch above some of the other jewelry makers.
Yeah, because when people buy jewelry, and I have to confess I don't buy a lot of jewelry, but when people do, I have to imagine it's if you go into the same store and you keep seeing the same stuff over and over again, you're not going to buy anything.
Right, you get bored.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly changing things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of all the things that you do, what is your favorite part of the job?
The people.
Yeah.
I'm a people person, I'm a talker, I'm social. So by day, I get to do something I love, which is make jewelry.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, I get to be with people, which I love.
You get to
so
do things like this.
I get to be at Lafette. Yeah.
this
And
must be
all
like
sorts
heaven
of
for you.
it is. And all sorts of festivals. That's the best part. And meeting the people and building relationships with my customers, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely. Real quick before we go, where can people find you?
I am at the Dane County Farmers Market most Saturdays, and I'm at a lot of the festivals in town. Lafette, I'll be at Atwood Summerfest, I'll be at Willie Street Fair. I'm somewhere almost every weekend.
Okay, excellent. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Tammy Reschke from the Bohemian Bauble. I love that name. Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're
Pleasure
welcome.
talking with
Thanks.
you. Don't go away. There's more Talk of the Town coming up right here at Lafette de Marquette. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. We are here at Lafette de Marquette on Madison's east side, and I'm joined now by one of the volunteers, there's over 600 volunteers here at Lafette de Marquette, and I'm joined now by one of them, Janet Jones. Janet, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm enjoying being here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you with us. So I want to start out by talking about the uniform that you're wearing. We call this is what the gendarmes wear, and that's what they call the police officers in France. So tell us a little bit about the uniform.
Right. Well, it's just a black top with a hat that everybody seems to love. I don't know.
Sure. So you're kind of acting as security for
Right.
getting in. But it's a free event, so people can just walk right past
Right,
you.
right.
Okay, very good, very good. So now you work sort of with the Wilmar Neighborhood Association, is that correct?
No, I have actually had belong to organizations that use the Wilmar Center
Okay,
for
sure.
meeting place.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. How did you get involved with La Fête de Marquette?
Well, La Fête de Marquette, of course, benefits the Wilmar Center.
Sure.
And I belong to a group that has a show on WYOU TV every week, and so I appreciate having that show, and so I come to volunteer.
Sure. How many years have you been volunteering now for?
I think this would be about the fourth year, maybe.
Fourth year. Fourth year. And are you always wearing gendarme, the gendarme
Yes.
uniform?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite part about being a volunteer? What does it mean for you?
Oh, my favorite part is greeting all the different people.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's so much fun. I mean, there's such an eclectic variety of people here. There's so much great music. It's great fun, and you know, you can have some great food and great beverage too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So now, how did you get involved with Wilmar? I mean, you do a show for WYOU. Tell us about that. Or you're part of a show for WYOU. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm not part of the show. Well,
Right.
actually, I have been on it, I guess. It is a show for a religion, the religion of the light and sound called Eckankar.
Okay. Sure.
And there are some interview programs that are shown.
Excellent.
And, yeah.
Excellent. And you've been doing this for about 4 years now.
Right.
So have you seen anything? Has there been any challenges for you in being a part of this, or has it been pretty easy overall?
Oh, I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. I
Yeah.
see growth. I see much more in the children's area.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And what's been the biggest challenge for you so far? I think. I mean, are you doing it every day that the La Fête is on, or are you just doing it one day?
No, I only took one day, a 2-hour shift during one day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But that gives you an opportunity to get out and talk to people and enjoy
Sure.
yourself, enjoy some of the festivities and everything. That's great. That's great. So, are you? Do you know some of the other volunteers? I mean, is it a pretty close knit group of people? I mean, do you know some of the other volunteers pretty well?
No, I don't know any of the volunteers.
That's fantastic because you get to come together as strangers, basically, and put on this fantastic community festival. That must be really rewarding.
It is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've been doing this for 4 years.
Yes.
And what is your background? What do you do when you're not dressed in this costume? What do you do? What do you do?
Well, I've been a piano teacher for many years,
No kidding.
and I'm also a storyteller.
A storyteller. Okay. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us the story of how you became a storyteller. Maybe that's for another show. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's fast. When my daughter was in preschool, I told stories to her class. Actually, I read stories to her class, and somebody suggested, why don't you tell stories? And when I did, I liked it.
When you talk about storytelling, are you talking about like making up stories, or stories that have existed but you're kind of improvising a little bit?
When I first started, I started with picture books, or I started with stories that existed and I improvised, and I told them without reading them, from, just improvising on them. But then eventually I got so I wanted to write my own, and so I tell those too.
Cool. Well, you have a story to tell after being on TV.
Yeah.
Janet Jones, volunteer here at La Fête de Marquette. Thank you so much for joining us. That's all the time we have for Talking the Town. Thanks for sticking around today. We hope you had fun. We had fun here at La Fête de Marquette, and we'll see you next time on Talking the Town.